How does it feel to have endometriosis?
For every day, it's a battle. No matter if it's a good day or a bad day. What's really important to bring to light is it's not just a physical battle, it's a mental one.
Did you feel like you were the problem before that point?
Thinking I was absolutely bonkers at one point. At the beginning, I was like, no, there is something wrong. Like, please listen to me. Like, I beg you, please listen to me. There's something wrong. I know my body. I know when something's not right. And they would be like, no, you're okay. And then I think I got to a point where I'd listened to that so much that I was just like, maybe I'm mad. And I've got into sort of a mental breakdown. And then all of a sudden turned to me and just was like, and did you know you have endometriosis? And I was like, huh? What do you mean? I was like,
I was going to say, isn't that the size of a football?
yeah, that is the size of a football.
Oh my god, you had a endometrioma the size of a football inside you.
I had literally like a 26-week pregnancy. I just felt this wave of panic go over me and my breathing got shallow. And it was at this point I was like, maybe I should have come with somebody because I just remember just breaking down on the table. The fact that it was so severe that they could tell just off an ultrasound. I think I would have to put it as one of the hardest things that I've ever had to do to date in my life so far.
Drew, welcome to the Girl Chat.
Thank you for having me.
Lovely to have you here. You look lovely.
Thank
Hair,
you.
cardigan, everything.
And
Loving it.
yourself, yes, absolutely. Thank you.
No, my pleasure. You actually lived, so before kind of your diagnosis journey for endo, you live and still do live with a pre-existing chronic condition.
Yes, yeah.
Can you tell me what that is and how it works?
So I currently suffer from sort of a lifelong condition called Hypermobile Ehlers-Danlos Syndrome. And that's just a bunch of scary words to basically...
That's quite a mouthful.
Yeah, absolutely. But all it means is it's a chronic connective tissue disorder, which basically affects all the connective tissue in your body. So your joints, your muscles, your ligaments, all that sort of stuff. And the symptoms of that, it basically makes you extra mobile, so excessively hypermobile.
Wow.
And the effect of that basically means that sort of your joints and your ligaments are all sort of unstable, so your body's kind of constantly fighting every day to keep your body together.
Wow.
But also it has sort of all sort of fun symptoms like brain fog, fatigue, chronic pain, flare-ups of pain, and stuff like that. So that's something that I've lived with. I think I was showing conditions pretty much since my younger years.
Wow.
And then the sort of negative conditions sort of came in at about 10 years old. And it took me about until 16 to get diagnosed with that. I went through various diagnoses and medical professionals, and yeah, it took till about 16 to get diagnosed with that, and I've been living with that ever since and sort of managing that daily.
Oh, you poor thing. That is so, I mean, endo in itself is an awful condition, as we know, and we'll talk about it, but to have another condition so young, so many investigations when you're basically a child, that I can't even imagine how difficult that is, scary for your parents as well, really complicated.
Yeah, absolutely. I think my parents were really supportive, and so for myself, my dad also suffers with a chronic pain condition, so there was sort of a bit of support there and some sort of more empathy as opposed to sympathy. And he was sort of really supportive throughout my whole sort of hospital experience with that. And I think it was a bit bizarre as a child to go through all that, because, you know, usually you're just faced with school and your exams, and I was sort of being dragged out of school, hospital appointment, blood test, this, that, oh, it's a bad pain day or something like that. So it was a bit peculiar growing up with it, but I feel like after so many years you get to a point where that's like your normal. And I feel like just before my endo diagnosis, I just got to a point where I was like, oh, do you know what, I think I've got to a point where this is kind of stable and I can really just try and deal with this daily. And then you sort of get whacked with something else.
Oh, it's so unfair, isn't it, to just get to that point where you think, oh, do you know what, I might be able to manage this and kind of balance all these plates.
Yes, absolutely.
That's such cool timing. And like I say, the reason that I asked and began with that question about your pre-existing condition is because it brings a lot of pain in itself, doesn't it, that condition?
Yeah, absolutely.
Which is really relevant when we then start to think about the endometriosis symptoms that you started to experience. So obviously you got that diagnosis at 16. You'd obviously been living with pain and things before that. So you're no stranger to pain, are you?
No. not at all. Not at all. I think daily pain just became a norm for me, and I always joke about it and say I feel like people that don't live with pain every day, like if they do get a pain, they find that quite hard to describe to others, like when they're trying to describe it to a doctor or something. And I feel like having chronic pain every day makes you very creative with having to explain different types of pain. So it was kind of not nice to have the endo symptoms on top of that, but equally I feel like I was a bit more well equipped to advocate for myself and explain that different sort of pain, because I knew it was something different to what I'd already dealt with.
Interesting. Yeah, I can see that. It's like a skill that you had. Not that a skill that you didn't particularly want.
Didn't want it, no.
But one that you had.
Yeah.
Let's use that skill then. Let's do some descriptions.
Yeah, cool.
How would you describe your endometriosis pain? Let's get creative.
Oh gosh. It depends on what day it is. I think before, when I was sort of pre-surgery, that was kind of like a mix between, oh gosh, barbed wire just sort of wrapped around your stomach all day, like a bowling ball sat in your abdomen. And just especially through flare-ups and stuff like that, I mean, you could have probably took a chainsaw to my stomach and I wouldn't have noticed. It would have just felt the same.
Oh gosh. And so that was before surgery, wasn't it? And then, because obviously, I don't live with the other condition that you have. So for someone, a layman, obviously I know endo pain, mine will obviously be different to yours and it's still unique, but I understand endo pain. So how does that differ for you then from the pre-existing condition?
So with my Ehlers-Danlos Syndrome pain, that in itself comes with different levels of pain. So the kind of daily pain that I live with is kind of just more of like a dull, really annoying background ache, sort of all in the connective tissue, so your joints, your ligaments and stuff like that. And then on the flare-ups, where they can last anywhere between sort of a few minutes to a few hours or a day or so, that kind of, I always describe it as somebody putting lava in your sort of bone marrow. It's kind of just like a burning sort of ache that just progresses throughout the day, and you can't really do anything to alleviate that. Whereas I know obviously with some endo pain, depending on how severe it is, you can kind of alleviate that a little bit, whether it's with pain medications or heat or anything like that.
And that's really helpful. That was really, really good description, because I think when we talk about any condition, but especially endo, I think when we can make it like visual for those people that will never experience those symptoms or that just don't know a huge amount about it, I certainly know that when I have things explained to me, that visual element is so helpful because it kind of makes it like tangible and realistic, I guess. So obviously pain comes with endo. We know that, and you have really, really suffered with that. What for you has also come with endo symptoms wise?
I think the sort of doubling on the fatigue's awful, and that sort of brain fog. Some days I think when it's worse, I just say my brain's not working. Like, it takes me so long to get stuff, my concentration's gone, my focus is gone, I'm forgetting everything. And apart from that, what else? I think just the general sort of dampener it puts on your body. It just kind of, I always joke around and I like to sort of bring a lighter sense to it.
You have to.
Absolutely. I always joke you have to have sort of some sort of humour to it to be able to cope, because if you don't laugh, you cry. So
100%. And I'm so sick of crying.
I always joke and I'm like, do you know what? Today is like, I'm carrying my body's a corpse, I'm just dragging it around with me just to get through the day, and it just sort of drains you and you just don't really feel like yourself. So I think that's probably on top of the pain, that sort of fatigue and that sort of draining you have on your body is sort of another thing that's just awful.
The brain fog I can so relate to as well, because at the moment I'm like deep in my luteal phase, and like yesterday, I think this is a good example as well, I don't know whether you can relate to it, but the stark difference between one day and the next day with endo, like they can be polar opposite kinds of days. Like, hand on heart, genuinely, yesterday I woke up feeling horrific, and it was like I hadn't slept for weeks. I was in pain, I sobbed my way through the day, and I did not leave my couch. And all I thought about was, how on earth am I going to come here today and do interviews with all these amazing people? Because I literally don't think I could leave my house right now. And yet today, we're doing a really busy, incredible day of filming, but there's literally less than 24 hours between the two. I mean, does that happen for you at all? Is
Oh,
that...
yeah, of course. I think that's why I love bringing awareness to this so much. And I feel like with my conditions, I'm sort of extra open with people. It's not that I sort of introduce myself as, oh, I'm Drew, this is my whole condition, this is my whole life, my
Here's my
two
trauma dump.
conditions. But it's more like, I'd rather because then it makes all these tricky things a little bit more easy. For example, sort of friends and family, loved ones and stuff like that, if I'm just flat out open on these are the symptoms that are now happening since my diagnosis, and them knowing how volatile it can be, especially like at the workplace as well, if they know how volatile this condition can be and one day it's completely different to the next, then I think that makes it a bit easier for people to comprehend, like when you have to cancel plans reluctantly, but when you have to do that or switch things up or work from home or something like that, I think it makes it a lot more comprehensible for somebody that doesn't have to go through that the whole day.
Yeah, absolutely. Because understandably, if you're not going through it, if you don't experience it, I can understand from the other side of like, oh, are you cancelling again? Or like, oh, like you're not feeling well again, or what's wrong now? Or what's going on? Like, I can, from an outside point of view, I can totally see why people would be like, what the hell is going on? Like, you're fine, you're not fine. Like, what is happening? You mentioned brain fog.
Yes.
For people that have never experienced brain fog or kind of wondering what does that actually mean, because we often hear it in relation to like menopause. But it's a big, big part of endo. What happens for you, if you could like give an example?
Oh, for me, it's kind of, like I said earlier, my brain just sort of switches off. It's like anything productive that I wanted to do that day, I can sort of throw out the window because it's just not going to happen. I forget things so often. My concentration is just not where I'd want it to be, especially like if I'm at work and there's some sort of task, I then have to organize those tasks according to how my brain fog is that day, because if there's something that I need to do that sort of takes that extra bit of brain power, it's not going to get done that day because I just can't focus. And then I'll be forgetting sort of anything planned. I don't know what day I'm on. I just am sort of in this flurry of just confusion. Is all like, it's just like it is what it says on the tin. It is just like a fog over your day, and you don't really know where you are, what you're doing, kind of thing.
Yeah. Does this ever happen to you? Do you ever get halfway through a sentence, or if you're in a conversation, sometimes does it happen to you? Oh, thank God, it's not just me.
All the time.
This week at the moment, luckily it's not happening today so far, but this week I'm literally getting halfway through a sentence or halfway through a conversation, and I genuinely cannot tell you what we were talking about, where I was going with my point, and I feel like I'm losing my mind some of the time.
Oh no, that happens to me all the time. It happens to me with friends, family, at work, which is probably the most embarrassing, because you're just like halfway through and you're on a roll, and then you're just like, actually, what the hell am I talking about? Or I'm always known with friends or loved ones for going, oh, what were we talking about again? Or what did I say just? And I was trying to pick up sort of where I left off, and it's just very unsuccessful.
Yeah, definitely. Okay, well, I think that gives us a good picture of what you've been living with, symptoms-wise. And so when did endo symptoms start? Just remind me.
So, oh gosh, where are we? So about 2-ish years ago.
Okay, and how old are you now?
I'm 24 tomorrow.
Oh, happy birthday
Thank
for tomorrow.
you very much.
Okay, so early 20s
Yes.
is when endo symptoms started. Do you remember when they started? So for some people, there's quite like almost like a stark, like something came down and it was very sudden.
Yeah.
And for others, it's much more gradual build up.
Yeah, I think with this sort of whole diagnosis process that I've gone through, it's given me a lot of time to reflect on the past and be like, oh, okay, maybe that wasn't normal.
Yes.
So I think that maybe there was some sort of indication a lot earlier on in life, sort of going through puberty and getting your period and stuff like that. I feel like it was very sort of normal to have heavier periods and stuff like that, and people would just put like cramps down to, oh well, you know, that's what you get on your period, you just like kind of have to suck it up and get on with it. So I think that you internalize that when you're sort of in your teenage years and this is all new to you. So at that point I would have heavier periods and stuff like that, but I feel like I got whacked on birth control really, really early, sort of
Okay.
before I'd even been able to sort of get a cycle sort of normalized in my life.
Really?
Yeah, I don't even think it was maybe a full year before I got put straight onto birth control, and that's kind of all I
Oh my
knew
God.
throughout my whole teenage years up until about two and a bit years ago, which is
Okay.
when I sort of had a bit of a lifestyle change, and I wanted to, especially with my other condition, I wanted to get to a place where I'm feeling healthier and
Mm.
sort of in my best sort of body and mind space that I can be.
Yes.
So I was like, I'm gonna, eat healthier and be on a
Mm.
whole food diet. I'm gonna try on the days that I can to do as bits of exercise that I can do,
Mm-hmm.
even if it's just a little bit of walking or something like that, because that's another factor that I feel is really difficult for me to do with both conditions.
Yeah.
And so I was like, oh, and also I'm going to come off birth control because I want to, start tracking my cycle naturally. I want
Mm-hmm.
to, be in sync with my body and be able to listen to it more, because I feel like I've neglected it all these years.
Yeah.
And everything was okay for like maybe 2 months. And then that was sort of when the endo hell started, which was quite funny that it coincided with me coming off that then
Do you know what I was going to
hormonal
say? It's so
control.
common for so many women. The amount of stories we've just heard, whether it's from guests or like on socials, and you see it a lot on social media with the
Yeah.
advocacy work. So many women say the minute I came off that long-term suppression, that long-term contraceptive use, it was like, I don't know, like an explosion or like a
Yeah.
bonfire went off. Like it seems quick, extreme, and severe.
Oh, absolutely. I feel like I went from 0 to a million, like in
Mm,
a space of a few weeks. And I think it was from then that things started to deteriorate, and I started getting sort of intermittent on and off pains, and
okay,
then they started getting worse and worse and worse, and that was over 1 year.
okay.
And at one point those intermittent pains started getting really bad, and even for me, as we were saying earlier, like I am no stranger to pain. I
Mm.
sort of have to pride myself on that. I can take a lot of pain.
Yeah, you've got a high
um
pain threshold.
yeah, and that in some instances is really, really useful, but
Mm.
also it can sort of work as a double-edged sword, because then you sort of don't really listen to your body when it's sort of screaming at you, because you're just like, oh,
Yeah.
I can deal with this is fine. But yeah, so it got to a point where I was sort of in A&E back and forth, and I remember one day, which was sort of the turning point in my head, where I was like, this isn't right, which is when I woke up at probably like 3 a.m. in the morning, excruciating abdo pain,
Oh.
and I wasn't even sort of on or anything like that, and I was just like, what on earth is going on? I managed to just get to the bathroom and just sort of collapsed, and I was just like, I can't move, like this is the worst pain I've ever had. I thought I had like appendicitis. I was like, oh
Yeah.
my gosh, they're gonna have to roll me out in the ambulance, and we had the ambulance called and stuff like that. I'd gone to A&E, had sort of some, well, was waiting in A&E for quite a long time, and then
Mhm.
sort of had some ultrasounds, and they were like, well, we can't see anything wrong with you, like on your way, just have some painkillers and stuff. And that happened on a multitude of occasions, and I think it just got to the point where I was like, I can't do this anymore.
Mm.
I can't keep going back and being told like there's nothing wrong, and then, waiting
Yeah.
in A&E uncomfortable. And I got to a point where I was like, do you know what? If I'm gonna be uncomfortable and sort of in this pain, I'd rather do it at home. And I'd rather
Yes.
be in the comfort of my own bed and just sit there and try and distract myself as much as possible.
Yeah. I
And
think a lot of women get to that point as well. I think a lot of
yeah,
us, I was the same. I had a lot of A&E trips, and you get to the point before you have any answers, even to be honest, when you do have answers and things still happen, you do get to that point where you just think, I am sick of sitting in a
yeah,
horrible, clinical, uncomfortable, cold, unfriendly
yeah,
environment when you're the most vulnerable, the most scared. Understandably, you want to just do it somewhere you feel safer and you maybe have a bit more control over. You can lie down, you can sit up. Not that you can get comfy,
no,
not that you can sleep, not that you can get
no,
comfortable, not that the pain eases, but at least it's not in an A&E
yeah.
environment.
And you can try and distract yourself, or try and put the telly on, or I'll try and do
Mm,
this or do that, or sort of read a book, or, and which I mean, is quite impossible to do, but at least, you know, you've got a better chance than just sitting there in A&E.
Yeah.
Following that, these things kept happening, and I just thought, right, well, I'll just go to the doctors then, because at least that's sort of in my control a bit more.
Yeah.
And I don't have to sit waiting so long in sort of A&E. And got told by so many of my GPs, I think I went through the whole GP list at my practice, and each one of them were like, well, you look fine, it's like we can't see anything wrong with you. They sort of examined my abdomen and was like, no, you're fine, and I sort of went home, and I think I was so discouraged that I was just like, you know what, I can't be bothered anymore. I'm just going to put up with the pain and press thumbs and hope it goes away.
Yeah.
And then it got to a point, I think last June, and it didn't go away. And then I was like, oh dear, this isn't good now. And that's when I started really sort of pushing and advocating for myself following that.
So when you did those initial bunch of GP appointments where you went through the entire surgery,
yes,
when they're saying to you, no, look, you're completely healthy. There's nothing wrong with you. We've done the test. We've examined you. It's all looking fine. You know, don't worry about it. Nothing to see here. What was going through your mind? Were you thinking like, oh yeah, okay, I am normal, or what was kind of happening?
I was just thinking I was absolutely bonkers at one point. I was like,
Really?
is this just... At the beginning, I was like, no, there is something wrong. Like, please listen to me. Like, I beg you, please listen to me. There's something wrong. And I was like, look, I've got this other condition. Like, I know my body. I know when something's not right. And they would be like, no, you're okay. And then I think I got to a point where I'd listened to that so much that I was just like, maybe I'm mad. Maybe I've actually just sort of declined now, and I've gone into sort of a mental breakdown, and this is sort of my decline there, and I'm just making these things up, or maybe the pain's not actually that bad, maybe it's just, you know, everyday twinges or stuff like that. And I think then it got so bad, and when that pain sort of never went away, something flipped in my brain and was like, no, actually this is really wrong, and you come on, you know yourself, this isn't right. And then that sort of lit the fire to really go sort of back and advocate.
Did you feel like you were the problem before that point?
Yes, I think it got worse with time. The more I went, the more I felt crazy, the more I felt, oh, well, I'm just wasting people's time now. And I think the GPs there, they just sort of, I felt like a number in their day. It was just like, kind of, get in, well, you look fine, and get out, and that's kind of it. And it's like these doctor's appointments, and we know in the UK it's not easy to get a doctor's appointment nowadays.
No, it's not.
So you waited so long, you've got this appointment, you get there, you're seen for about 90 seconds, and then you're just sent on your way, and you're just like, oh, I can't keep doing this. And it was actually until I think a newly qualified GP that I actually saw, who was new at the practice, saw me, and she was the only one that I hadn't seen yet, and she's the one that actually went, this doesn't look right, and sent me then on for those ultrasound scans.
Wow, that's really interesting how she was newly qualified. That's really fascinating. Obviously it might be difficult to talk about everyone in the surgery practice, but if there was like an average age range of all the other GPs, are we talking maybe those that have been in the job 10, 15, 20 years or so?
Yes, I would assume so.
Yeah. And that's interesting, isn't it? Because in some ways I'm like, oh, that's hopeful. Newly practiced and qualified GPs have got better knowledge, and they've got that awareness. That's good. That's an improvement. And then it also makes me think, but we are still going to have a lot of GPs and do need them that are 15, 20 years into their career. What do we do with their knowledge and their lack of education around these conditions?
Absolutely. And I think as well, it kind of disheartens you even more, because you're thinking, well, you've been here, you've had practice so long, you've got so much experience, you've been in the job so long, but yet you can't help me. Like, you can't offer me anything.
Really disheartening. Okay, so this fantastic new GP said, oh, don't think something is right, actually. So is that when you went for your ultrasound?
Yes, so she said, right, we'll book you in for an initial ultrasound, and I think I maybe had some bloods as well. And that was quite a long wait for the ultrasound. It was at least a few months. I think it got was up until October time then.
Wow.
So from about June to then October.
Mm-hmm.
And I'd gone in, and I hadn't thought much about this beforehand. I probably should have been more prepared in hindsight. But I thought, oh, it's just before work and it's near my workplace, so I'll just drive there just before work, get it done, get it over with, go back to work, have my normal day, and I'll forget about it because I'll be completely fine on the scan because nothing's wrong with me, kind of thing.
Just quickly, was this an internal or external ultrasound?
Both. I had both.
Right.
Yes.
Did you know you were having both?
Yes. I
Okay.
think because you have the regulations, don't you, beforehand, where it's like you have
Yes.
to drink an ungodly amount of water.
Yes, you do.
And I was just
Yes,
like, I
you
am
do.
going to like explode in this waiting room if you don't hurry up. But no, yeah, so I had both of those. And I'd gone in the morning, and the ladies who did it were absolutely lovely. That made me feel really comfortable. And I felt like as well, being in a clinical setting for a lot of my lifetime, you get poked and prodded so much that you get to a point, and especially even now after surgery and all that sort of stuff, very glamorous.
Oh, yeah.
I just thought, do you know what, I've reached a point in my life where I've just got no dignity anymore, no shame. I've just been poked and prodded by any clinical person ever. So nothing sort of scares me anymore. So I was like, right, we'll get on with this. And they were really lovely ladies. And I lay down, and she'd done the external one first. And even on the external one, she'd gone straight away. She looked at me with a sort of horror face, just sort of like, oh, did you she was like talking to me about everyday sort of stuff, like, oh, what are you doing after this work, and then all of a sudden turned to me and just was like, and did you know you have endometriosis? And I was like, huh? What do you mean? I was like, no. And I just felt this sort of wave of just panic over my body. And I think as well, from having all my other conditions, I know people say, oh, don't turn into a Dr. Google and all that sort of stuff, but having all my other conditions and sort of self-advocating with those, I've become, and also the field that I work in is conveniently in sort of clinical negligence and medical sort of stuff.
Oh, very convenient.
So I'm quite good at researching these sort of things online and looking at all sorts of different symptoms and conditions. And I remember months and months beforehand, endometriosis had popped up as a possibility, and I'd just gone, oh, well, I've just been to the GP, they said I'm fine, like it can't be that, no, like I don't fit this one criteria or something like that. But yeah, I just felt this wave of panic go over me, and my breathing got shallow, and it was at this point I was like, maybe I should have come with somebody. Because I just remember just breaking down on the table, and she was like, yeah, you've got, and the fact that it was so severe that they could tell just off an ultrasound.
Oh my God.
Because of course now we've got to go through your sort of laparoscopy and stuff like that to actually get diagnosed fully. The fact that she could just tell straight away off the ultrasound just panicked me so much. And she was like, oh, do you know what that is? And I was like, yeah. And I just kind of went silent and just sort of sat there trying to keep it together, and then went through the internal one as well. And she just went, yeah, no, after both of these, I can, even though you need this other sort of diagnostic, I can tell you now that this is what you've got. And you know, so I just remember being absolutely deflated that day. I think I was crying out of sort of grief because this horrible thing has now come to light in my life, but also out of relief as well. Sort of just like, okay, I wasn't actually insane, and all these doctors that told me I was fine were wrong, and there is something wrong with me, and now at least I can address it. I think that was relief as well.
Do you think she realised, the sonographer, that you didn't know before she said it? Was there any moment of like on her face of like, oh shit, I've just dropped myself in it, or I've just said something that she wasn't expecting? Do you think she realised at all?
I think she did, but also she was very relaxed. I feel like she's probably done at least 100 of these before, and that it probably doesn't faze her anymore, and it's just kind of like, well, now you know, so you don't worry about it. They were very reassuring afterwards, but I think just the sort of delivery of that.
We're taking a quick break to say thank you to today's sponsor, BU Period. When it comes to women's health, I'm obsessed with all things holistic and natural. My go-to product is BU's pain relief patches. The combination of menthol and eucalyptus is pure bliss when an endo flare hits. Whether it's pelvic pain, back pain, leg pain, or anything else, they give me the instant and long-lasting relief I need. And you can even set up your own subscription so that you never run out of natural pain relief. If you want to get your hands on BU's patches, you can find the link in the show notes. And make sure you use the code INJAP10 to get your exclusive lister discount. Now let's get back to the girl chat.
Was a shock.
We talk about this so much. I mean, the bedside manner, the delivery, we talk about it a huge amount. It requires improvement. If we're used to use an Ofsted phrase, it certainly requires improvement. Okay, that is, oh my God, that's huge. That's absolutely life-changing. So, did you go to work that day?
Well, I'd sort of pulled myself together again, and sort of put on a brave face, left, and they were like, "Are you okay? Are you with anybody?" I was like, "No, don't worry. I'll go. It's fine. Like, I'm okay." And got out of the building, got into my car, started driving to work because, of course, it was only like a 5-minute drive. Didn't even barely make it through the threshold and just completely broke down. And I was really lucky in that the fact at my workplace we've got sort of like wellbeing rooms that are at the top of the stairs, conveniently placed for people who are coming in with such horrible news. So I made it up the stairs, got into the wellbeing room and just sort of broke down. I was just like, I can't do this today. This is too much. And I remember Teamsing off my phone my friend who knew that I'd been going through these sort of symptoms at work and was just like, "By the way, I'm in the wellbeing room. Could you come please and see me because I need help?" And bless, she absolutely sprinted over, came in, and I just broke down to her, and she just was there sort of reassuring me and just trying to calm me down, and we spoke through it to the point where I'd got myself together that I could then just drive home. I just couldn't work that day. I think it was such a shock to the system. And I think no matter how much, when you have conditions like this, you are able to put on a brave face, and you're able to put on this facade every day and like act like you're okay or you're not in pain or anything like that. That day I just couldn't conjure up anything and I just went home again, broke down to my parents as well because I was back home at this point. And yeah, it was I think that's just gonna be a day that sticks with me forever.
Yeah. How could it not though? I mean, like, I think the day I got diagnosed will stay with me for the rest of my life as well. I think it's such a massive, pivotal day, especially when you've spent years being in pain, all the symptoms, all the times you've been told that you're crazy or there's nothing wrong with you. All of that together, it's like the absolute pinnacle. Like, if you talk about a mountain, it's like all the years it's taken to climb to the top of the mountain, all the times you've fallen down and had to get back up again. That peak of the mountain is just, it's so huge, isn't it?
Yeah, absolutely. And I think as well that it was reflecting back onto what all the GPs had said to me and things sort of falling into place that should have maybe clicked with me a bit earlier. And I, like, for example, I saw one GP who it was when the pain wasn't intermittent anymore and was there all cycle round, and he just stared me dead in the face and was like, "Well, you've just got really bad sort of period cramps, you just need to manage this with ibuprofen and stuff like that." I was like, period cramps? I was like, this is all month round. Like, last time I checked, that's not how that works, sir. Like, I don't think
that's
like
basic. What, I mean, I will just say it, I'm not going to be polite. In the nicest way, how lacking does your basic knowledge and biology have to be as a qualified GP to think that you could explain pain every single day around the entire month as period pain? Like, if you just said, like, I mean, it's still ridiculous, but if you just said, like, oh, I don't know, it's just your pre-existing condition, or it's another reason why you're in pain every day. Still incorrect, but fine. But to be so misinformed to say, yes, you can have period pain every single day of the month is beyond ridiculous, because it literally goes against the complete fundamentals of what the menstrual cycle is.
Absolutely. And I just sort of remember looking at him and I couldn't even respond. I was just so in shock that he'd even said that to me. And in my head, I was just like, I don't think, like, with all due respect and however many years of
Mm.
experience you've got, I don't think that you can comment that
Yeah.
that's I was just so
Mm.
in shock that he could even say that, and just thinking about that in sort of retrospect to when I got that sort of news on that day, I was just like, oh my gosh. And to think that I was told that this
Mm.
sort of endometriosis diagnosis and also this massive endometrioma that they'd found
Yeah.
on the scan
Mm.
was said to be period pain. I was
Yeah,
just,
we haven't talked about that part. We need to talk about that part. That's a big
yes.
part of your story. So, on the scan, they found an endometrioma, which is one of the three types of endometriosis. But it wasn't just any old
Oh
endometrioma, was
no,
it?
no. So that was sort of the thing that really gave it away to her. The
Mhm.
fact that, so at that time, and like I said, it went from 0 to a million in the space
Mhm.
of like a few weeks and months. So at that point in October, when they did the ultrasound, they found a 10 centimeter endometrioma. It was 10 centimeter at that point,
Mhm.
on the left ovary, and she knew that it was obviously endometriosis,
Yeah.
and could tell me that on the day, because you couldn't see anything else on the scan. It was just the endometrioma.
Oh
And
my
I
God.
remember her, I was like, well, she was like, oh, you've got endometriosis. Oh, and by the way, you've also got a 10 centimeter endometrioma. I felt the world just stop. And I
Mm.
just was trying to, I remember it was quite funny that I was just sort of working out in my head, 10 centimeters. Did I hear her right? Did
Mm.
you mean to say like 1 centimeter? Or I was like, 10 centimeters is pretty big. Like,
Yeah.
is she serious about this? And I actually asked her, I was like, well, can you show me? So she turned the screen around, and I was like, well, where is it? And she was like, that is it. Like, the whole screen was just full with this picture of this endometrioma, and that grew so fast. That was like one of my worst sort of parts of this whole journey, was the
Mhm.
fact that that just grew phenomenally. By the time I'd had the MRI to confirm that it was stage 4 deep infiltrating endometriosis, it had grown another centimetre. And I was trying to work it out in my head. I was like, okay, well, that's not too bad. Maybe by the time that I finally get surgery,
Mm.
it might be, max like sort of 14, 15 week, I can sort of deal with that.
Mhm.
But no, by the time I got to the MRI, it got to 11, and then by the time I went for surgery, so I had the MRI in November and had my surgery in February just gone. So
Mhm.
in those short few months, it had gone from 11 centimeters to 25 centimeters, and they likened it to a 26-week pregnancy, and I was just sort of gobsmacked when he told me that after coming out of surgery.
Oh my God.
Bearing in mind I was still sort of groggy from the anaesthetic
Yeah.
and stuff like that, but I just sort of, I couldn't comprehend that that had sort of been just chilling out in me for that
26,
long.
25
Yeah,
centimeters.
25 centimeters, about a
Isn't that,
football.
I was going to say, isn't that the size of a football?
Yeah, that is the size of a football.
Oh my God, you had a endometrioma the size of a football
Yeah,
inside you.
I had literally like a 26-week pregnancy without even the pregnancy. It
Oh
was
my
just
God.
insane. I couldn't comprehend.
Oh, I mean, and we should explain, shouldn't we, for those that don't actually know what an
Yeah.
endometrioma is. It's also often called a chocolate-coloured cyst.
Yes, yeah.
It's a type of cyst, but made from like endometriosis, that can be filled with different kinds of fluid.
Hmm.
And the chocolate ones tend to be old blood, which is why it's a chocolate-coloured cyst. But it can be a few different things. So yeah, it's we can call it a cyst, but it's not the same cyst as when you talk about maybe like polycystic
Yes,
ovarian
yeah.
syndrome and things like that. Oh my God.
Yeah, and I think I got so sort of in my own head about the
Mm.
diagnosis and being told for so many months that there was like nothing wrong with me, that
Mhm.
sort of stuck with me even when I knew something was wrong with me. So
Really?
like when they were testing my abdomen and stuff like that, when it would have been probably about 9-ish centimeters,
Mhm.
and they said that they couldn't feel anything, and I'm like, that's impossible, because
Mm.
that was pretty big then, and then as it grew, it
Mm.
was just awful, because like when I was standing up it was fine. It kind of just
Mhm.
looked like I'd had a few nights of large pasta portions. So just like a bit extra
A bit
bloated, or
bloated,
yeah.
yeah.
And then but when I was lying on my back, and sort of your stomach lies sort of flat, you could actually see it sort of protruding out. And I sort of thought, like, well, this isn't right. Or, well, towards the end before surgery, obviously it was massive,
Mm.
and it was all I could think about, all I could see when I lay down to go to bed,
Mm.
or when I woke up in the morning. And
So as you moved closer towards the surgery, obviously that was a point where we're talking like 20 plus centimeters by
yeah.
this point. So could you see it day to day
Oh
on your
yeah.
body?
Oh yeah. Absolutely.
Was it one side or did it kind of take up your whole stomach?
Yeah, so what had happened was, because it was on the left side initially, as it grew and it got so large, it sort of just filled. I mean, there's not too much space. I feel like I'm quite pear-shaped, so I'm
Okay.
quite sort of a lot thinner on sort of my stomach than I am sort of on my legs.
Yes.
And so as it grew, it sort of just filled whatever space it could. And because it got so big,
Mm.
it grew from the left, pushed into the middle, and then got stuck to everything basically. And it just sort
Oh
of
my
sat
God.
central and attached to the right ovary as well. So they were then kissing. So they were kissing, and it was just stuck to everything. It was a nightmare.
Oh my God. That's just horrific, Drew.
It was such a shock, and I think it really messes with the way that you look at your own body,
Mm-hmm.
and it makes such sort of a dysmorphic sort of outlook on yourself,
Yeah.
to the point where I was wearing so many baggy clothes. I would very, very rarely wear any sort of slim fit tops. Any of
Mm.
like my tops that I'd like to wear out if I went out with friends or something would be
Yeah.
gone. They would just be like baggy jumpers and hoodies and everything like that, and I just could not look at my stomach. It would just absolutely tear me up every day. I just couldn't look at it.
How did you feel about yourself and your body when you looked at yourself?
I just didn't see myself. I
Okay.
just thought, I think, like I said, it was such a dysmorphic sort of outlook on my own body
Mm-hmm.
that I didn't know what my body was supposed to look like.
Mm-hmm.
So I got into a point where that was my normal. So even when, say, the endometrioma was smaller and it was kind of just like bloating, I'd noticed that for months and months and months. But
Mm.
because they'd sort of checked my abdomen and done all sorts of tests and prodded and poked at it, said there was nothing there, I just put it down to like bloating and stuff like that. And I couldn't figure out, because obviously you put on weight with that as well,
Yeah.
because it was, I can't remember how much they said it weighed, but it was in sort of the 1 to 2 kg ballpark.
Oh my word.
So obviously I've got this extra weight on me as well, and so
Yeah.
you're going through life, and at this point I'm trying to be as healthy as possible,
Mm-hmm.
and I'm trying to still like do whatever activity I can. So at that point I was getting into like stretching and like sort of gentle yoga and stuff like that, to see if
Mm-hmm.
that would help with pain and strengthening like my joints and stuff. And I got to a point I was like, why well, for starters, like, I'm not looking any different.
Mm-hmm.
I've put on weight,
Mm.
and my stomach is just so bloated. I was like, what the hell is going on?
Mm.
And then sort of them saying nothing was there, I was like,
Yeah.
well, what am I doing wrong here?
Yeah.
Like, have I got like an allergy to something? Is it like gluten? And I was
Mm.
trying to change so much in like my diet and stuff like that, and nothing was changing. The weight was just getting more and more, and obviously my stomach was getting bigger and bigger. And it wasn't until I actually had my diagnosis that I realised how much it's stuck out of my stomach, because I
Oh.
just sort of had this um outlook of my body that that was the way it was supposed to
Yeah.
look, and I'm just bloated or whatever. So it was really just bizarre, and it's taken me a long point even now post surgery to get to a point where it's like, oh, this is now my new normal. It's
Mm.
like something's missing kind of thing.
Yeah. Let's talk about surgery. Who did your surgery? What kind of surgery was it? So, was it a gynecologist? Was it a specialist? Was it excision? Was it ablation, robotic, manual? And how did that go?
Yeah, so it was my first surgery ever, so that was very, very scary.
Of course.
I don't like the fact of, I think what scared me the most was the idea of like the anesthetic and sort of letting go of that control. I feel like I'm quite stubborn
Mm-hmm.
and I like to control situations, and obviously you can't do that in that situation there. Um, But yes, so I got booked in for surgery. Initially, it was in the end of January, but something happened on the day which meant it had to get delayed a further sort of 2 to 3 weeks till February, which was just absolutely just crippling.
Yeah.
It was really hard to sort of move on from that. I had a endometriosis specialist do mine.
Thank goodness.
I was so lucky, and I'm so grateful that I was able initially to go through my works insurance, and so the rest of my tests, sort of the MRI, so everything after the ultrasounds, that was all sort of done privately through my insurance, to when they found out, you know, it's deep infiltrating at stage 4 and we're gonna have to do surgery. So I actually had an endometriosis specialist called Mr. Afifi.
I've heard of Mr. Afifi.
He's really lovely. He's so nice, and he's got such nice, calming bedside manner, which I think was really important for me at that time. And he's down in Birmingham, so we obviously had to travel a little ways to sort of get there. And yes, I went for my pre-op, and I had the awful, because also I had bowel involvement, so you have to do the dreaded bowel prep, which
it's horrendous, isn't it? Oh my God.
I refused to do it a second time because I had it for the January surgery scheduled, and obviously they had to unfortunately cancel it on the day. And my biggest fear was not, okay, I've got to wait 2 weeks with this again. My biggest fear was, oh my goodness, I have to do that prep again, and I can't do it. It was the hardest thing I've ever done in my life. It's awful, and no amount of squash is ever going to fix it.
Do you know what I'm sick of? I can't look at jelly in the same way.
No, it ruins it.
I am sick. If anyone ever offers me jelly, it's like, no. Because, it's all, you can't eat. You can't eat anything.
No.
You basically can't leave the toilet. You get incredibly sore because everything has to get completely flushed out of your system. You can only have squash. The medicine itself tastes absolutely god awful that you have to drink.
Bad.
And then, because my mum was always with me, we had like the sheet of what you can have and what you can't have. And for some reason, my surgery's always been in the summer as well, weirdly, when it's been really hot.
Yeah.
So all I wanted was jelly to try and cool myself down. But, oh, no, sick of jelly now.
No, traumatised from it. No, I was the same. I remember, I think it was like the last litre or so, I just sobbed through it as I was doing it. And it's so hard because I can't really drink so much all at once. And you have to do it within a time frame. And I was like, I'm going to be sick before I finish all of this. Like, there's no way in hell that I can do this. But so I actually opted to have it was like a medical enema instead for the second time round, because that was my barter. I was like, look, I'll come back in 2 weeks, but I'm not doing that again. Like, there's no way, I can't do it. So that was sort of my barter with him. But yes, so I got booked in for mid-February, and I had, because there was bowel involvement, so I had Mr. Afifi as my endo specialist, and then I had a colorectal surgeon as well, also, who was a specialist, and they sort of did it in tandem with each other on the day. And yeah, it took, oh gosh, I can't even remember how long it took now, but it was more than expected. It was longer than expected, and it was more complex than was expected. So I was actually under for I think it was maybe, I want to say like 4 to 5 hours ball mark, where I think when you have just a regular sort of basic excision, it's sort of more towards the 1 to 2 hour mark. So I was under for a lot longer. But yes, so got booked in for mid-February, got in, went under, and I had a full excision. So I had excision of the endometrioma. So at that point, that was the 25 centimetre endometrioma on my left ovary. Had to have a full reconstruction of that left ovary. And I also had a 5 centimetre endometrioma on my right. So that had to be excised as well. They had to basically remove it off of everything because it had stuck itself to the side wall, to all the ligaments, to everything. It was just sort of all intertwined. I also had deep infiltrating endometriosis on sort of pretty much anywhere you could find it. It was kind of just on the side wall. It had invaded into my abdomen, pouch of Douglas, and also it had gone into my bowel as well. So I had to have a full bowel shave. And that was obviously so scary because it was like you could wake up with a stoma,
Yeah.
and this could be something even more life-changing that you then have to deal with. And I
Yeah.
just think I couldn't comprehend it. I just was so scared. And I think that was the first thing I checked when I woke up out of
Yeah.
anaesthetic. I was like, have they had to take anything? Have I got a stoma? Like, have they got it all? So yes, it was quite a traumatic surgery. Again, as I said, it was a lot more complex than what they thought from the MRI scans. But he seemed very confident afterwards, and he was like, "We've removed everything that we can. The endometriomas, we've removed those. We've also reconstructed the ovaries because obviously that was another concern, was fertility and stuff like that.
Yeah.
So it was really just sort of reassuring that at
Yeah.
least he'd been able to save that, which on the NHS, unfortunately, I would have been still waiting for months
Yes.
after that. So
Yeah.
I was just so, so grateful that I was able to get in with this quite fast.
Yeah.
And I know that people unfortunately have to wait a long, long time to between diagnosis and getting that surgery, especially if they have to go NHS. And I think that in terms of, I know I had the 2 years prior of sort of symptoms. I think from diagnosis, my journey actually went pretty fast in comparison to
Yeah.
sort of other people who maybe have to go the NHS route.
Yeah. No, and you're right. And I've also had a mixture of NHS and private healthcare. I've kind of gone in between both systems for different reasons at different times. And the difference is stark, isn't it? It is a
Yeah,
huge difference. Just like you say, how quickly or not you can get surgery. You in on the NHS could be years. You could still be sat here now and not
yeah,
having had that surgery. One of our previous guests, Wales is different and even more complicated, but she has been waiting for surgery for years
yeah,
and still hasn't happened, and it's just horrendous. Okay, well, that is life-changing surgery, isn't it? That is just,
yeah.
yeah, it turns your world upside down, inside out. And you mentioned to us that recovery's been really tough.
Oh yeah. It's I think I would have to put it as one of the hardest things that I've ever had to do to date in my life so far.
Okay.
I think the whole surgery, I think the actual surgery was probably the easiest part of it. You don't have
Yeah.
to do anything. You're put to sleep and there you go.
Yeah.
I think I was so groggy when I woke up, and again, I was so panicked about
Mm.
having the stoma and stuff like that. And I just remember waking up from the anaesthetic, and I think my first words were just "ow." I remember
Oh.
coughing and just everything hurting. And nobody, I don't think anybody, private or NHS, nobody prepares you for how severe the recovery is. I feel like
No.
everybody makes it out as, it's not that bad, it's not that
Yeah.
invasive, like you're fine, like you'll be up and ready in like 2 weeks or
Do
something.
you know what does my head in?
It's
Is they
like,
call it minor surgery.
no, no way.
Like the
It's
amount of
just,
women that have had excision, I'm the same as you. My surgeries have been around the 5 hour mark because I've had like bowel involvement and stuff as well. But even when you talk about women that have the 1 to 2 hour surgeries where it's not good, but hopefully maybe it's just located to like the pelvic
yeah,
area and it hasn't affected anything else, still not good, still
no,
severe. But yeah, they just say, oh yeah, it's minor surgery. And they're kicking women out of hospital beds on the same day
no.
as excision surgery.
I know, it's awful. And I think that sort of changed my perception on how I thought recovery was going to be. Because I
Mm,
feel like you get onto like Facebook forums and you see all
yes.
this sorts of stuff and research and whatever. And you see all these terms like, minor surgery. And you think,
Mm,
oh, okay, it's not going to be too bad. And then you actually come to realize afterwards, like, oh no, it was bad.
mm,
It's actually so invasive, more than you think. And when I try and explain that to other people who
mm,
I'm sort of telling about this sort of journey, I'm like, you don't actually realize that it's like a million tiny little cuts all
mm.
sort of in your abdomen. Everything hurts.
Mm,
Everything will continue to hurt. It's not like, oh, 2 weeks is up
mm.
and you're fine again. Like I couldn't use my abs, and
Yeah.
you come to learn really quickly that you need them, like for
Yes.
everything. And I
Yeah.
remember I couldn't even get up out of bed. I had to get someone to literally just sort of hoist me up out of bed
Mm,
because I couldn't use my own abs to get up. Going to the bathroom's awful.
mm,
Sort of every single daily task that you take
mm,
for granted on a day is just a million times harder.
mm,
Showering, even trying to make a cup of tea, it's just
mm.
awful. You're trying to lift up a kettle, your abs don't work, and yeah,
Yeah.
everything just continues to hurt. so many months into recovery, like I know I'm only a few months into recovery now, but I still get twinges and stuff that sort of freak me out because I'm just like, oh, what's that? What's
Yeah.
this? And I think I had to be told so many times by my loved ones, you
Yeah.
know, you're only a month in, you're only 6 weeks in, you're only 2 months in, like things are gonna hurt, things are repairing. It can take up to, I think, about 6 to 12 months before you're fully recovered from
Yeah.
any of this.
They say 6 months.
It's a big trauma, and then I think about, I have to reflect on that and be like, well, yeah, they've gone on to, you know, excise from my bowel, they've excised from my sort of uterus, my ovary, everything like that, and you just don't realize it. Nobody can prepare you for that
No.
afterwards. It's a really humbling experience, the
It is.
recovery.
Yeah, it really is. Yeah, it's again, it's one of the there's so many things living with part of endometriosis that are so hard to explain to anybody else that doesn't live in it, because it's just the condition's so good at making you feel so isolated and so
Yeah.
alone. And it does make you realize that when you have your first surgery, you go through these experiences, trying to get that across to somebody not in your body is so hard.
Yeah.
So hard to do.
Absolutely. And I just remember, but there was also, even though there was pain to deal with for a number of months after that, I remember the relief for me that was like
Yeah.
a kind of instant relief. Because obviously I'd had this sort of essentially a bowling ball
Yeah.
sat on my bladder,
Yeah.
pushing all of my organs into all sorts of different places that they shouldn't be in, and just causing such horrendous pain that when I came out of it, okay, the actual recovery pain was nowhere near as bad as I was having with the
Yeah.
endometrioma and with the endometriosis on a sort of daily basis. So I was
Yeah.
like, right, if we've done that, we can do this. We just persevere and sort of
Yeah.
get through it.
And as we come towards the end of the conversation, one thing I really want to ask, because surgery is still so close in the rear view mirror for you, and everything has kind of happened in the past few years, so it's compared to some of our other guests, it's a lot closer in
Yeah.
more recent times, especially your diagnosis. So I would really love to know, how does it feel to have endometriosis?
I think for every day, it's a battle, no matter if
Okay.
it's a good day or a bad day. And I think what's really important to bring to light is it's not just a physical battle, it's a mental one.
Mm,
And I think probably, again, as I said, I'm used to pain, I can take pain. I think the mental aspect was the worst part for me,
okay.
because it was just such a shock to the system. At that point, I didn't know anybody else with endometriosis. I couldn't relate to anybody. I was trying to, you know, find support through online forums and sort of things like that. And it makes you feel completely isolated. Even when you've built a little bit more of a community with people, say that you know or you've met online or
Mm,
anything like that, you still, on a daily basis, in your daily sort of tasks, you feel absolutely isolated
yeah.
and by yourself and like you're fighting a losing battle every single day.
Mm-hmm.
And it's sort of pushing through that. I mean, you do get the good days where you can go and you feel a bit more like yourself. And I think definitely surgery is absolutely fab for that. And for
Mm-hmm.
me anyway, I've had a really positive experience with that, and I feel a lot more human and a lot more like
Mm-hmm.
myself, and that I can do things that I couldn't do before.
Mm,
But I will still have my days where either the pain is bad or when I'm on my cycle, that's bad.
mm,
And it sort of brings you all sort of back to the day that you were diagnosed, and it feels like it's
yeah.
never really gone away. You can't ignore it, and it's sort of a weight
Mm,
on your shoulders every day that won't ever really go away, no matter what your
mm.
symptoms are like. And like I said, I think that the mental aspect as well, I don't think is brought to light
No.
enough. Was not expecting. I just thought, you know, naively before, I have the surgery, everything's fixed, everything's magic, great, I can carry on,
Mm,
live my life how I want to, and I'm going to be perfect. It's going to be great. And to be hit with so much of like the anxiety and the isolation and the sort of just panic of everything, sort of any twinge that I get now, I'm thinking, oh my god, it's back, or I need to, you know, have another scan, or I need to go to the doctors because it's back, I know it's back. And again, as I said earlier, the body image, that's also something that I still struggle with now, because I'm like, actually, I don't know what I look like anymore. I don't know what I'm supposed to look like anymore, and all that sort of stuff just puts a weight on you physically and mentally every day. And I think
mhm.
it's kind of an invisible battle that you sort of fight with yourself that's not always seen by everybody.
Absolutely. I don't think I could have put it any more eloquently than that. It's so, so true. Yes, that we talk about the physical a lot and it's out there and it's great that we have the awareness and the advocacy like we've talked about, but yeah, it is the psychological, it feels like psychological warfare in lots of ways. It feels like torture. It feels like just so complicated. So complicated for one person to have all that in their head and try and muddle through all of it. I mean, Emma Barnett said recently, one of the quotes is, it's like a slow living death. And I just think that is so accurate. Maybe not every day. I think it depends on the person. Maybe not if you have good days, but God, when it's bad, it does just feel like a slow living death and it's just being drawn out and drawn out and drawn out.
It really does. And I think as well with any chronic condition, you always face that sort of, as horrible as it is, why me? Why has this had to happen to me?
Yeah.
Why can't I go out and sort of live my life and go out with friends and go and do fun things? Why is this sort of dictating my life now? I have to factor it in with everything. And I think also that kind of hit me twice in life, and it kind of felt like being beaten twice, because I had that initially when I was 16, when I spoke to that doctor who diagnosed me. Following that, I think it was maybe a rheumatology specialist, he kind of just sat me down and was like, well, we can't really do anything anymore, you just have to manage this. And he even said to me, this is a life sentence, this is what you have to deal with for life, and you need to accept that, basically. And I felt all that sort of, those thoughts from when I had that said to me flood back as soon as I got diagnosed with this, after surgery, anything like that. And any time I have a bad day, that floods back to me, and I'm kind of like, this is a life sentence, you've got to deal with this. And I think that fear of the unknown in the future, you kind of have to take every day as it comes, because again, the volatility of it, you don't know how you're going to be tomorrow, you don't know how you're going to be in 6 weeks, you don't know how you're going to be in 6 years. And I think that is just so scary to have looming over you every day. Like, am I going to get worse in 6 years? Am I going to get better in 6 years? Who knows? It's quite traumatizing.
Yeah, there's a lot of trauma attached to it. Definitely a huge amount of trauma attached to it. Oh, I mean, I genuinely, the way you just talked about it, the way you've just described is, I think so many people will be able to relate to. I feel like in lots of ways you've gone into my head and almost just plucked out the perfect script of what I would say about how I would describe it. So thank you, because that was
thank you.
an amazing explanation. I have a podcast tradition for you, and it'll be interesting because of where you are in your journey, and a lot of things happened in quite recent years. But I would like you to imagine that I'm not sat here. I'm not in this chair, but the person that is a younger version of Drew. You can pick what age. And if she was here, if you could see her, if you could speak to her, what would you say to her?
Oh, that's tricky. I feel like I've had a lot of those moments throughout my life where I was like, if I could speak to my younger self, what could I say to her right now? As cliche as it is, just to persevere and don't give up. And you've got these sort of struggles and you have to go through these every day. But the person that they actually, make you into in the future is somebody that you're going to be very proud of and aspire to be. So, and you're just going to keep getting stronger every day from them. As bad as it is, you can turn that bad into good. So I hope that I can continue to do that in life.
I have no doubt. Having spoken to you today, I have absolutely no doubt that you'll be able to do that. Thank you so much for sharing your story. You were so eloquent, put things across so beautifully that I know people will really be able to relate to. Thank you so much.
No, thank you so much for having me. I've had such a good time.
I loved our girl chat today. Thank you so much for joining me. If you want more content about periods and women's health conditions, then make sure you subscribe wherever you're listening and watching. You can follow us on socials using @itsnotjustaperiod.uk. Head to the show notes for all the links and info about today's guest. I can't wait to see you next time. And remember, girls, it's not just a period.